Thank you so much for tuning in. We are happy to welcome you to the launch of OII Europe's 2019 Good Practice Map. My name is Ghattas. I'm the Executive Director of OII Europe. And with me I have three amazing intersex activists. Irene Kuzemko, Secretary of OII Europe and Board Member of Intersex Russia. Irene will be so kind to moderate the panel. And here are our panelists. Vanessa Sager, who's the Vice President of Interaction, a Swiss member organization of OII Europe. And Bente Keulen, National Policy Officer with NNID, a Dutch member organization. Welcome and thanks so much for being here with us today. After last year, this is the second time that OII Europe has collected good practice examples that show how intersex people can be protected in Europe and how the fight for intersex human rights can be supported. As you can see on the screen in a few seconds, each example includes a short description and some explanation about what makes the action such a good practice. Like last year, the map shows a whole range of possibilities. It includes standard setting, legal protection, research and data collection, awareness raising and campaigning, employment, and last but not least, funding. As you can also see on the map, the range of bodies that made these examples possible is wide. National governments, a municipality, the European Parliament, and the European Commission have shown the political will to work towards change and for the betterment of intersex people's lives in Europe. The European Parliament, for example, adopted the 2019 landmark resolution on the rights of intersex people, which includes a comprehensive and clear standard for the protection of intersex people's bodily integrity and human rights in the European Union. And the European Commission included intersex people for the first time in the Eurobarometer on discrimination, and thereby showed that intersex people and intersex issues can be mainstreamed in longitudinal and repeated surveys. And then we have 5 national governments and 1 municipality. The Finnish Ministry of Justice and the Ministry for Foreign Affairs of Finland commissioned the participatory qualitative study No Information or Options, study on the rights and experiences of intersex persons. It brings to light life experiences of intersex persons living in Finland and was commissioned as part of the Finnish National Action Plan on Fundamental and Human Rights. Malta is the first government to fund the regional intersex-led intersex organization, OII Europe, and one of the few governments that fund intersex-led organizations at all. The German Federal Ministry for Family Affairs, Senior Citizens, Women and Youth established the Regenbogenportal, Rainbow Web Portal, which is an LGBTI portal based on a clear human rights perspective that includes many articles on intersex, all of which were either written or proofread by intersex human rights experts. The Ministry of Family Affairs, Integration and the Greater Region of Luxembourg created a campaign on LGBTI with a specific section on intersex, which also includes human rights-based information material. And last but certainly not least, the Netherlands and Switzerland. The Netherlands amended the General Equal Treatment Act, which now states that people may not be discriminated against on the grounds of their sex characteristics, their gender identity, and their gender expression. And the municipality of the City of Bern in Switzerland adopted a 2019 to 2022 action plan, which includes measures for the equality of LGBTIQ people and has a special focus on intersex people in employment. It also provides action points that aim to make intersex people more visible in society. I am very happy that we're joined by Urs and Bente today, who will give us more details about the processes that led to the Dutch and the Swiss good practice examples. Irene, I'm passing on to you.
Thank you so much, Dan. I apologize for little technical difficulties we're currently having with sharing the map and showing an image of it. Maybe my colleague can try to do that for me because I don't have the rights, for example, for some reason, to show the map on this stream. Ins, could you please help me with that? No? Okay. Sorry for that.
Yeah, I'm sorry. There's no option for it.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Yeah, because I also tried and I couldn't do it. But anyway, the map can be found on the OII Europe's website. It was posted on all the social media today. And then I would say we can go on with the questions. And we have a lot of very interesting questions. I'm really excited to ask them for you. And my first question is for Urs regarding the action plan that was accepted in the city of Bern. And my question is, what was your experience like in working together with the municipality for creation of this action plan?
First, I have to say that it was a surprise. No, not very much of a surprise, but still a surprise that we were included. It means that our president was consulted when the action plan was made. You have to understand that Interaction Suisse had excellent collaboration with the City of Bern even before they launched this action plan. We had a number of events we made with them concerning intersex people, such as podiums, such as meetings, such as meeting the workers of the City of Bern and stuff like that. So actually to be involved or even to be asked and being included in the action plan is an excellent experience for us. It was the first city in Switzerland that really did something including the intersex community and Interaction. So briefly, it was perfect.
This is amazing. Thank you so much, Urs. My next question is for Bente. Since 2019, in the Netherlands, intersex people are protected from discrimination on the basis of sex characteristics. And now intersex people have the opportunity to complain to the Netherlands Institute of Human Rights. And I want to ask, what legal consequences does it bring and how different it is from going to court?
Yes, well, I think that the possibility to lodge a complaint with the Netherlands Institute for Human Rights lowers the threshold to talk about discrimination with the official authorities and to get the support to undertake action if you are a victim of discrimination. And there is a possibility to anonymously file a complaint. And in this way, the Institute for Human Rights can register how many cases of discrimination and what types of discrimination are frequent. But there is also the possibility to start an official complaint procedure. And then the Institute gives advice on whether you can start a procedure or not and which steps you need to take. And if you start the procedure, the complaint is not anonymous anymore, but the organization or the person you are filing a complaint against also becomes part of the procedure. So you're working it out together. And then the Institute starts an examination of the complaint. The judgment of the Institute is not legally binding, but in 80% of the cases in which the Institute states that the defendant is discriminated against, or the person that files a complaint, the defendant undertakes action to better the situation of the victim, such as changes in policy or individual solutions. So that's really a high percentage. And it's also important to mention that complaints can also be filed and mediated by local anti-discrimination institutions too. So there are multiple low threshold options. If those options do not work out, you still can go to court, but they try to work it out together without going to court. So I think that's really a nice way to better the situation for intersex people.
This is amazing. Thank you so much, Bente. I love it. And I absolutely love that they're actually collecting that data because it's very important to have data on such cases. Thank you. My next question is for Urs about, again, the action plan. And I want to ask you, what power does the action plan have? How it is different from, for example, legislation?
Okay, an action plan can be, it can be powerful, but legislation still is the important thing. What it gives us the opportunity to launch stuff within the city of Bern, which goes to the canton of Bern. We have very good collaboration with the legislation because we have people who are very inter-friendly in there. So what we're using it actually to launch certain things, at least within the canton of Bern. As you know, Switzerland has many cantons, and it has many different meanings, many different governments. Our problem is to have some success in the federal government is very difficult, because the federal government is not very inter-friendly, I have to say. So we decided with Interaction a few months ago to start with the local governments to push the federal government afterwards. So if you have an action plan in a city and you can work closely with it's the Office of Gender Equality in Bern we work with, you can launch other stuff. So an action plan is absolutely perfect and necessary to go forward and maybe have some success with the legislation afterwards. To start with the local government and then probably with the federal government.
Thank you so much, Urs. It sounds amazing, and it is a really interesting way to go to the local government first, and I wish you the best of luck in everything that you have to do.
Thank you, we need it.
Yes, of course, it's very exciting. And coming back to Bente, I want to ask you, do you know already about any public cases about either complaints to the Institute of Human Rights in the Netherlands, or people going to court about discrimination on the basis of sex characteristics in the Netherlands?
Well, the General Equal Treatment Act was amended at the end of 2019, so not that long ago. So the registration about the complaints of discrimination based on sex characteristics is not clear yet. We will know that at the end of 2020. However, there are some complaints that got into the news of transgender people that use the same amendment that we are talking about, and they filed complaints based on gender identity and gender expression. It shows that the explicit mention makes it more easy to file a complaint. So that's, I think, a very positive trend. And the Institute has quite an elaborate explanation of the amendment of the General Equal Treatment Act and examples of discrimination based on sex characteristics on their website. So they're really encouraging people to contact the Institute in cases of discrimination and help them with that. So we expect that there will be cases in 2020, but we know that at the end of the year.
That's great. Thank you so much, Bente. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to that, but not looking forward to the discrimination, but I'm looking forward to the cases and actually things changing and people actually learning more about this. Now I have another question for Urs, and it is something that you actually already answered a little bit. The question is, how would you and your organization, Intersex Swiss, how would you utilize the new action plan? How it can be useful for you? And you already did answer it a little bit, but maybe if you have something that you can share a little bit more about this.
Yeah, I can probably tell you what the action plan brought to us so far.
Please do.
It's like the City of Bern before the Corona crisis was launching an event which is called Like Everyone, which is a very important event going over the whole city, involving above all younger people, and we were very much involved in there. There is a number of events which could not take place because of the crisis where we would have been involved, which are either postponed to next year. Like Everyone, for instance, this event is postponed to 2021. It will take place. So it gives us really a number of opportunities, and we have such an excellent collaboration with the City of Bern. I think with no other city in maybe except for Geneva, we have a similar collaboration which brings us thus far. You know that Geneva is the first city to launch a law against the mutilations in Switzerland, which, if it passes, and it's actually as we would like it to be, which is a major breakthrough of course for us. We try to expand that to other cantons, other cities in Switzerland. So on the basis of the action plan and the collaboration with the City of Bern, it will maybe be Bern, Zurich or Basel, the next cities where we are going to launch something similar.
I see. Thank you so much, Urs. And it's so amazing to have good allies, and especially it's amazing when those allies are local governments. And yeah, I'm really excited for the next things that are for the future in looking for you. Okay, now I have a question for both of our speakers. It's honestly my favorite question of today. And the question is, do you think about that there is a discrepancy between governments doing small things like being welcoming towards intersex people, protecting us from discrimination, but still not implementing legal protection for intersex rights, still violating our rights? What do you think about the fact that small things are done, but at the same time, the same governments still continue to violate our rights? Non-vital intersex surgeries are still happening. What do you think about the situation?
Switzerland is a little bit different from the Netherlands, right? Because in Switzerland, an intersex person, one person, is protected against discrimination by law, but not the intersex community. We had a vote last year which prohibits discrimination on the basis of sex characteristics, but not gender. That was excluded. So trans and inter people are not protected. I mean, the community of trans and inter people. So you could still say that we are, I mean, if you post that intersex people are all freaks and need to be, I don't know what, it would still be legal. But I think that from my point of view, the mutilations are still the most important thing we have to fight for to end them one and for good. And if a law against discrimination would help to fight mutilations, I don't know, I'm not sure. So it's like two fights. You have to fight against discrimination, and you have to fight against mutilations. So and the fight against mutilation will be much more difficult, I guess.
100%. Thank you so much, Urs. I'm sorry, my neighbors are being loud today. Bente, do you have anything to add on that question?
Yes, well, I completely agree. And I think in the Netherlands, there's a discrepancy for sure as well. It seems that discrimination and societal protection is seen as a human right by the Dutch government, but that the protection of bodily integrity and autonomy is not clearly linked to the human rights violations of intersex people. Mm-hmm. So, and although NNID and other civil society organizations really try to explain why it is important to protect those basic human rights, the government still has taken no adequate action. And it seems that their view on intersex people and sex diversity is still very medicalized and influenced by opinions of medical institutions. Mm-hmm. So, but I think still that anti-discrimination legislation is also very necessary in the fight for more equality for intersex people. So there are positive changes, but I completely agree that there are two different fights, and that the fight to stop intersex genital mutilation is even more difficult than the fight for anti-discrimination.
I 100% agree, and thank you both so much for your great answers. And it's definitely a frustrating situation when so many amazing activists are working for so many years and still don't really have their words taken seriously. Bente, I will continue with you. My question is, now more and more countries are adding the protection on the basis of sex characteristics, the anti-discrimination protection. What do you think of this trend? Is it good? Should it continue?
Yes, I think it's a very positive trend, but it's also important to see the practical implementation of such anti-discrimination protection. So, for example, it's necessary to communicate about these changes and the possibilities for intersex people to use the anti-discrimination protection. So it's useful to look at the support people get to file complaints and how the government and institutions deal with these complaints, if something is done with these complaints. So the consequences of filing a complaint have to be transparent, and the situation of the people that file a complaint has to improve in order to speak about positive legislation. So it's not only the amendment, but also the consequences of the amendment that you really need to look into.
Yeah, I totally agree. Thank you so much for this amazing answer. It is really important. My next question is for Urs, and again, you already answered it a little bit, but still, do you want the action plan to cover the entire country of Switzerland, not just Bern? And do you think it is realistic, and will it happen? What do you think?
Yeah, apart from what I just said before, I would say an action plan for the major cities or the major offices which deal with gender equality would be very nice. An action plan for the whole country of Switzerland would be, I would say, impossible, because that would be, we have to work with municipalities, with the cities. We have to involve doctors. We have to involve other people. So to have an action plan as Bern did it for all major cities would be very nice. I mean, Bern is member of Rainbow Cities Network. So is Zurich, for instance, and Zurich also does things for the LGBTIQ plus community because they have to, because they're member of the Rainbow Cities Network. Basel is on the verge of joining the Rainbow City Network. I grew up in that city, and I still partially live there. So I hope we can achieve something similar in Basel as well. So spreading all over the country a few action plans would be perfect, but it's also a lot of work, of course. But we have a very good example in Bern, so we can always go and say, see, Bern did this, so why don't you do that too?
That's
so from that point, they're really like Bern is like the city which does, to me, in the whole country, absolutely the most for the LGBTIQ plus community. Absolutely. They're really superb.
Amazing. Thank
and
you so
to work with those people is excellent.
I'm very happy to hear that.
Yeah.
That's what we need really as intersex organizations. That's very cool. My next question is for both of our speakers again. As you know, for so many years, so many human rights organizations all over the world has been speaking out against intersex human rights violations. And we have the UN, different UN committees. We have the European Parliament resolution on intersex rights from 2019, which of course made it to our map. So yeah, we have so many powerful human rights organizations speaking out against these violations. What influence do you think it has on your government, if any? Like, is your government looking at that? Is your government listening to that, or at least trying to listen? What do you think?
I have the Dutch first, because they probably are more positive than Switzerland is.
Well, I think the Dutch government really struggles with the EU resolution and other international recommendations. We had a recommendation from the UN Committee Against Torture, and they really see the importance of such resolutions and recommendations, but they do not acknowledge their responsibility in protecting the human rights of intersex people. So often the human rights stance is seen as one of the existing opinions next to the medical opinion, for example. But I think these international developments will ultimately lead to the realization that human rights are not an opinion in the debate, but the foundation of all policy, and also the responsibility of the Dutch government. So they see that they have to do something with the recommendation and the resolutions, but they're still not really taking their responsibility.
Well, so it's as bad as with you as it is here. It's even worse, because briefly said, and to be pretty direct, the Swiss government, the federal government, gives shit about what comes from the EU or the UN. Not totally, but mostly. Okay, because most of the time you hear or you read, oh, those people are absolutely protected, and oh, there are no mutilations, because we ask the hospitals and they say they don't mutilate anymore, which they do, and stuff like that. So it's really, really difficult. I have just a recent example. We have in the federal government now the change of sex, simplification for the change of sex for trans and inter people. So before the federal government made a suggestion how the new law should look like, children could absolutely, trans children above all, could absolutely go and say, I want to change my sex and my name. And that was okay. And now with the new law, which is partially good, because it says you can, when you're of age, that means from 18, change your sex and your name without going to court, which costs a lot of money and is very painful sometimes. And you don't need a medical proof. You can just go and register. But children cannot anymore. They need the okay of their parents or their legal
guardian, caregiver.
Right. And that's not good. So, and we were fighting to get this part of this article out of that law, which passed one part of the government. Now is going to a second one, to the National Council. So we'll see what we can do. But things like that happen all the time. You want to get mutilations off, you can say, look, Geneva is making a law, or is about to make a law. Why can we not have a federal law which prohibits mutilations? Oh, there are no mutilations. I mean, but the UN and the EU has sent number of reports to Switzerland which were answered, and they always give the same answers. We do everything we can do, and we don't see a problem. So it's like fighting windmills, and it's a very tough work to convince politicians that we need certain things, absolutely, because those things are our rights. I mean, it's our bodies, it's my body, and I can decide what my body should look like and who I want to be. And I don't harm anybody if I say I want no gender or a different gender in my passport. So that's our problem.
100%. Thank you both so much for your amazing answers. I absolutely love your words about your body and you actually having the right to make the decisions. And I absolutely agree with your take, Bente, about the fact that human rights are not a debate or not an opinion, it's human rights and everybody should have them. And yeah, the shadow reports that was sent by the Netherlands to the Committee Against Torture was so good. And I'm so happy that you got that recommendation, and I really hope that the government will listen to it. And worse, coming from Russia, I totally understand what it's like when your government ignores the
Yeah, no,
UN.
I understand. I do.
So yeah, I can relate to that, unfortunately. Yeah, but moving on from that, I want to ask you both again, what do you feel about this development from your country, namely the action plan and the anti-discrimination protection? What do you think about it making into the new OII Europe Good Practice Map 2019?
Oh, for us in Switzerland, it's an absolute boost.
Oh,
It's an absolute boost, and for the city of Bern as well, because you can always point at the map, and pointing at something from an organization which represents all intersex people all over Europe and the world, bracket closed, will be an absolute boost for us and the city of Bern. And I hope, I mean, I will get feedback, I hope, from the city of Bern. I hope the feedback is good, and I mean the collaboration is already excellent, but it can always be better. You know, you can always do more, and I hope it will also help us when we go to other cities or other cantons, and we can say, see that map, there is Bern, and where are you? You know what I mean? So
yes,
that's always good
love
too.
it. Thank you so much. It's such a good point about actually pointing to the map and using it as an example. Bente, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, well, first we were very happy in 2019 when the General Equal Treatment Act was amended, and that intersex people are now legally protected for the first time in the Netherlands. I think it's a recognition of the existence of intersex people and the difficulties they have to deal with. And I'm also very happy that the amendment made it into the OII Europe map, because I think it's important to acknowledge the positive changes and not only pay attention to the things that are not yet arranged, or like just to keep courage in the future and just to keep up the good work. And I think we're doing a good job, like all of us together.
100%.
It makes us activists proud as well, because actually we're part of it. We're behind it now, aren't we? I mean, we've been working on it, and we've been working together with the city, and then the city says, okay, we make an action plan and you are involved. So that's something to clap on your shoulder for.
Yes, and
for once.
Yeah, and I want to add that it's also very useful to see what other countries and other organizations are doing. For example, in the Netherlands, we are also looking at the possibility for municipalities to sign a declaration to develop a policy for intersex people. So it's really helpful to see that such developments already happen, so you don't have to, you know, all make it up by yourself. So that's really useful as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you both so much. And I'm very happy to hear that. And I agree. I think that with so many violations, human rights violations happening, it is important to highlight the rare good examples so people could see them, the countries could learn from them. And this actually helped me to move on to my next question, which is, thinking about the good examples from your countries, what do you think other countries can learn from those examples? Like what your government did, what do you think other countries can learn from that?
They should look at the map. It's as simple as that, isn't it? I mean, because Bern did it, and Bern is member of the Rainbow Cities Network, the city of Bern will for sure also this live event take back to the next meeting of the Rainbow Cities Networks and tell them, see, because of our action plan, intersex people in Bern are happier than anywhere else. So other cities can learn from that if they didn't do it. And my country, or the cities or the cantons in my country, can learn from that city, from the city of Bern. So you have to start somewhere and do something and then spread it. Otherwise it doesn't work. It's absolutely useless if you keep it within a very small region. It's like when Geneva has a law against mutilations, it's nice if you live in Geneva, but if you live outside and there's a small canton, okay, there are a lot of people living there, but a small canton, but all the others living somewhere else don't profit from it. So everybody should profit from stuff like that. That's my view of that whole story.
I absolutely agree, Urs. Thank you so much. Bente, what do you think the other countries can learn from the Netherlands?
Well, I think that other countries could learn that it's not just a policy change, but there are more aspects to the policy that need to be arranged to implicate these changes. For example, the General Equal Treatment Act in the Netherlands was a legal change, but it was also very important that the Netherlands Institute for Human Rights explicitly mentions and explains discrimination on grounds of sex characteristics. And I think another important point for organizations is that cooperation on such issues is also very beneficial. So, for example, we cooperated with the Dutch National LGBTI organization and the national organization that fights for the equality of transgender people. So the cooperation brings the different fields of knowledge and experience together and makes the fight for equality for intersex people more visible and embedded in existing equality legislation and lobby. So cooperation is also very beneficial.
I totally agree. Thank you so much for that. Yeah, and I really hope that this map will get out there and more countries will look at it and see the other examples and hopefully will follow it. Which leads me to our last question, which is also my favorite. This is again for you both. And the question is, what are your wishes for the future of intersex human rights in your country?
There's one big thing IGM has to stop, to end as soon as possible. That's my first and very important and basic wish. But there is it's a stony way to get there. We have to fight for it, but there are many other small things we have to achieve on that way, which will lead there. It's like the debate about a third gender or a neutral gender in Switzerland, about the change of sex, about many other things. Maybe small steps will help us to do the one big step. And I hope I will still live when that one big step will be achieved.
Please do, and I really hope so. And I totally agree that we have the biggest, main important goal, but there are also so many other smaller things. Bente, what are your wishes for intersex human rights in the Netherlands?
Well, I completely agree with what was just said. I think, first of all, the protection of bodily integrity and autonomy of intersex people with a legal ban on unnecessary medical interventions without informed consent. So that's the main, that's the foundation, I think. But I also wish for the Dutch government to take their responsibility in protecting all different human rights of intersex people and to demedicalize this issue. I think that's also very important to, in the fight for equality for intersex people.
100%.
I may add that in ICD 11 there could be a change concerning intersex people as well. That would be really great. And because there won't be, as I know, or as I assume, an ICD 12, but they're going to change like individual points in the ICD. I'm not sure, maybe Dan knows more about that. So I think we wouldn't have to wait that as long as, for instance, trans people waited to get their
identity
problem out of ICD 10.
Yeah.
So that's one more thing that would certainly also help us in the fight against the doctors and whoever is cutting around on intersex people.
100%, that's a very important point. Yeah, and I totally agree with both of you. And like with what we're fighting for is being so simple, like everybody has the right to decide what to do with their own body. It is frustrating a little bit that it takes so long and it takes so many of us and so much work, but I'm sure we will get there. Just we need to get there. I want to thank you both so much. Your answers have been amazing, and it's been super interesting for me. Thank you both so much. And my colleague Dan will probably join me right now with a little announcement.
Yeah, so Bente, thank you so much for these very in-depth and very comprehensive answers. And Irene, thank you so much for moderating the Q&A. I really hope that we'll see change as fast as possible. And I also want to thank you and all the other intersex activists on national level that make this possible, because as you very rightfully said, these good practice examples on a national level, on a local level, these exist because intersex activists and intersex human rights experts and their allied policymakers and also politicians with a political will are actually working towards it. And we never should forget that there's a lot of work behind all these developments, and hope for a time where there's not so much work needed anymore to make these things happen. Still, they are happening, and this is really important. This is totally different than it was a few years back. So being able to have these maps, to have the OII Europe map, and for you to use it is something that is only possible because we've already seen some change from a complete invisibility to intersex people being, well, more visible at least in different areas of life and also on a political level. So thank you to all the European intersex activists for your work, and thanks for finding the OII Europe map a useful tool, because this really makes our work worthwhile. So we're doing this for you, and we're really happy if you can use it. So before we close, I just have a small announcement. So there will be an Instagram live event on Wednesday, so this Wednesday in 2 days at 6 p.m. Central European time with ILGA Europe and OII Europe about maps, basically. So again, about our Europe map and about the rainbow map. And to you who are watching this live event now, you're happily invited to join that event as well. So thank you, everybody. It was really nice to have you here. I hope you have a nice evening and see you next time. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dan. Thank you, Irene.
Thank you.
Thank you. You've been incredible, absolutely incredible. It was a pleasure. Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.